Sinisterism is about finding the primal aspects of the left-hand path, primal in history, primal in the psyche, thus obtaining truth. Thomas Leroy.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to your dose of sinister heathenry. But for those new to the channel, I'm Thomas Leroy, founder of the International Left-Hand Path organization, the Sect of the Horn God. The sect is an educational foundation created to not only make those with the black flame aware of its glow, but to also restore the shadow aspects to the ancient gods by going deep into the past, not only historically, but also psychologically. For the primordial depths of the psyche are limitless. So, if this sounds interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to learn more, join the organization, the Sect of the Horn God, at the link down below. Thank you. What's at the root of sinistrist or left-hand path practices? This time I don't mean historically, but psychologically. What are we trying to achieve? Many do it out of a need, a compulsion. Asking them this question would be like asking someone why they eat or why they breathe. They feel they have no other choice but to do so. For me, this question is the primary question, and I ask it not to debunk, but to reinforce the validity of being on this path. I'm not doing this because I want to spread greater awareness for the sake of the status quo, because fuck what they think. To them, we're either nut jobs or purveyors of evil. It doesn't matter how we may attempt to rationalize our motivations. The vast majority of the general public will never understand why we do what we do. But the truth is, many practitioners themselves don't understand why they're on the path and what their goal is. They just feel this need. Recently, I made a video where I stated that the acceptance of death and the peace of mind that comes with it is an important aspect of what we do. Because a complete acceptance of our mortality leads to a greater acceptance of existence. For many, death is the ultimate horror, and if you're willing to embrace that horror, you've conquered life. You are, in a sense, deified, but there's something even deeper, a goal that would situate us outside the norm of what could be called a spiritual practice. And that is retaining our individuality even at the deepest reaches of being. It's like this. I think most are familiar with the idea of the spiritual oneness of it all, and when in deep meditation or under the influence of psychedelics, a person will feel like they are one with the universe. My argument for those on the left-hand path is, how can you be your own God and at the same time be lost in that great cosmic stew? The truth is, you can't. It's important to retain your individuality, your ego, especially within the deeper reaches of the psyche. But it must be a healthy ego. The fact you remain a detached observer in the spiritual realm validates your standing as one who is deified. Now, some of you, when you hear the word spiritual, think woo-woo hippie shit, and I don't blame you. When I use the word spiritual, though, I'm talking about the innermost depths of the psyche. But trying to understand that which bubbles up from its depths is nearly impossible to articulate with words, because the psyche doesn't use words. It doesn't mean we shouldn't attempt to understand, though. However, where words work only within the objective realm, symbolism aids us in understanding that which lies within the subjective, or soul. The gods and demons can be seen as guides to help us in this venture, but they are the avatars of the archetypes. Even though they are within, they're also without. They point the way, but you can't wear their skins. Often in the search for understanding, one must adopt a guise. You're doing that whenever you put on your robes, aren't you, you dark magicians? And the greatest guise for understanding the symbols, though, is that of the alchemist. Out of all the ancient esoteric arts, nothing has a greater symbolic vocabulary than alchemy. But for the few of you who don't know what the hell alchemy is, it's the ancient esoteric art or practice that combines elements of metallurgy, astrology, medicine, and mysticism. Its profound symbolic meaning represents a unique intersection of science, philosophy, and mysticism. Thus, alchemists viewed the material and spiritual realms as interconnected, believing that transforming base metals into gold reflects the spiritual purification and enlightenment of the soul. In the past, alchemy could be found in various forms in vastly different cultures such as Egypt, India, and China. But for the sake of Western esoteric practices, we have to start with ancient Egypt and the god Thoth. Thoth's connection to alchemy is complex, for he is the god of wisdom, knowledge, magic, and writing. And alchemy, as an ancient and esoteric practice, required extensive knowledge of the natural sciences, symbols, and the mystic principles. Thoth's association with these domains made him a fitting deity for alchemists to revere and invoke. But later, with the establishment of the city of Alexandria and the Greco-Egyptian period, Thoth was combined with the Greek god Hermes, resulting in the composite deity Hermes Trismegistus, or the thrice great Hermes. It is believed he is the author of the Corpus Hermeticum, a collection of texts fundamental to Western alchemy. These texts cover topics including alchemical transformation and were highly influential during the medieval and Renaissance periods. In the Philosopher's Stone, a central symbol in alchemy, represented the ultimate goal of this transformative quest, symbolizing perfection, enlightenment, and immortality. But for us on the left-hand path, the important phase within alchemy is the negretto, or the blackening, which represents the initial phase of decomposition and decay, where the alchemist confronts chaos and impurities. It is a period of despair, darkness, and confronting the shadow aspect, or the unholy guardian demon. Thus, one takes part in a metaphorical death that allows for rebirth. Now, it's standard for someone with a scientific, materialist perspective to view alchemy as nothing more than superstitious nonsense. However, Carl Jung's fascination with alchemy began when he noticed similarities between the symbolic language of alchemy and the dreams and fantasies of his patients. He delved into the alchemical text and found that the processes described in alchemy reflected the stages of psychological development and transformation. Thus, for Jung, alchemy became a metaphor for the process of individuation, the journey toward wholeness and self-realization. Now, this brings us back to the left-hand path. For this mirrors the focus we practitioners have on embracing and integrating all aspects of the self, even those which are sometimes considered taboo. By embracing the principles of individualism, self-deification, and breaking taboos, we can utilize alchemical symbolism to guide our journey toward the ultimate expression of self-realization. But, Thomas Leroy, alchemical symbolism is all well and good for a deeper understanding of the psyche, but what about that acceptance of death you mentioned? What could one on the left-hand path practice to help bring that about? Well, if you live in India, you can practice Agora, but for those of us here in the West, I would recommend necromancy. For necromancy forces individuals to confront the reality of death, which leads to a deeper understanding of one's mortality and the transient nature of existence. The common view of the necromancer is that of a master of the dark arts who communicates with the spirits of the dead to predict the future. The Greeks and Romans believed the spirits of the deceased had access to knowledge beyond the mortal realm, making necromancers valuable seers. In medieval Europe, necromancy was synonymous with witchcraft. Necromancers were often seen as individuals who made pacts with the devil, using their powers for evil. So it's no big stretch to guess necromancy was condemned by the church, leading to the execution of those suspected of practicing it. In many non-Western cultures, necromancy has been a part of traditional religious practices. For example, in certain African and Afro-Caribbean traditions, communicating with the ancestors and spirits is a central element. These practices often involve rituals considered necromantic by Western standards, but are seen as a means of maintaining a connection with the spiritual realm. Necromancers represent a bridge between the living and the dead, embodying the ultimate transgression that is both terrifying and intriguing. But analyzed from the philosophical perspective, necromancers seem to represent the darker aspects of human nature, or fascination with the clandestine powers and the complexity that comes with wielding such powers. But there's more to it than that. So how can one get a deeper interpretation of the question of necromancy, you may ask? This brings us back to Carl Jung. At the core of Jungian theory is the concept of the collective unconscious, a reservoir of shared memories and archetypes inherited from our ancestors. in the figure of the necromancer, and the association with death and forbidden knowledge can be seen as a manifestation of the shadow archetype. Get what I'm saying? The symbol, and here we go back to symbols, of the necromancer can be seen as a metaphor for one's own personal demon. Therefore, engaging with necromancy symbolizes a direct communication with the darker aspects of one's own psyche. And more than that, seeking knowledge or guidance from the spirits of the dead is exactly what we're doing when we connect with the collective unconscious. For that is, as stated, the realm of the ancestors. In a sense, we're raising the dead because it is the location of buried ancestral memories. So, necromancy as a ritualistic practice involving death holds deep psychological significance, because by engaging with the macabre and the forbidden, we're acknowledging and incorporating the darker aspects of the psyche into conscious awareness. Thus, viewing necromancy through the lens of Jungian theory, we can appreciate its symbolic significance as a journey into the depths of the human psyche, the soul, to find answers. So, in conclusion, my friends, can alchemists turn lead into gold, and can necromancers raise the dead to obtain hidden wisdom? Yes, but not in the objective realm. The alchemist and the necromancer work their magic in the subjective, from that place where we gain a deeper insight into the complexities of the human mind. And as long as we remain intrigued by the mysteries of forbidden knowledge, the language of the alchemical symbols and the reanimated voices of the dead will help guide us on our path toward sinister illumination. Until next time.